Hey, what's going on everyone? I'm Sam Lazarus, Creative Director for Rokoko, and I've got a very fun and special little workflow that we're gonna go over here today. The point of this video is just to show off one of the potential uses for the new Rokoko Coil Pro. So you might notice, I have seemingly full performance motion capture happening on this character. My head is moving, my arms are in the right spot. Look, I can grab this controller. This might need to get tweaked a little bit, but looks pretty darn good. This is just parented to my left hand. I can turn this off if I put this down. But I've got full performance motion capture happening here, and I'm not wearing a smart suit. I'm not wearing a suit, I'm just wearing gloves. And as much as I love wearing my Smart Suit Pro 2, for a use case like VTubing, like this one that we're demoing right here, it's really cool to be able to just hop into your gloves and still get that full movement of your character that you're looking for, especially for the upper half of the body. So in this video, we're not going to be doing a deep dive into how I got this character set up. We are going to be going through how to set up this system using a Metahuman, which is a little bit more automated. It makes it a little bit easier to get all of this running together with the LiveLink app. I'm not a very talented Unreal dev. I'm sure people who really know what they're doing in Unreal could get some really interesting use cases running with this setup. And it's, again, I don't have to hop into a suit for this. So what actually is happening here? What's allowing me to do this? As I said, I've got my smart gloves. The Coil Pro allows us to track your smart gloves in absolute space, right? They're actually in the right spot. So that's taking care of my hand positioning. I'm then using kind of an IK system to drive the rest of the upper body, right? So the rest of my body is moving. And then I've just got the Unreal LiveLink app set up on my iPhone right here. And that is transmitting both the facial motion capture data, but also it has an option to send over my neck and head movement as well. So that's taking care of my neck and head. And that makes this setup very low lift, right? I can hop right in. I just have to throw on my gloves, turn on my coil, turn on my smartphone, and I can be doing this for hours and hours and hours super reliably. I'm not gonna be drifting anywhere. I'm not gonna be moving. And again, it doesn't have any lower body motion capture. You can see if I pan down here, my legs are just static, but that's fine because for a VTubing type setup, we just need, the upper body. Please put any questions that you might have down in the comments below, and I'll be getting to them. And without further ado, let's jump into this and set this up for a Metahuman. Okay, so here I've got a fresh new Unreal project. I've just already imported my Metahuman. You can watch our other tutorials for information on how to get a Metahuman into your project. But we are going to be working with Rokoko live streaming data, and when we're doing that, there's a few things that we're always going to do in our project just before we even get going. So the first thing we're going to do is I've got this linked down in the description below, but we have this Rokoko resources folder. And this is free. You can go and download this and just keep it and use it for whatever you want. But there's a bunch of things, including bone maps and then a T-pose asset for your Metahuman that we've already made and have given you in this folder that you can go and is going to make our life a lot easier. So in order to add this folder, it's just a .zip. I'm going to copy the folder, Rokoko resources. Then I can go and if I just show in Explorer, here we go. This is our, Unreal project, the folder here. I'm going to go to the content folder in my Unreal project, paste the Rokoko resources folder. You can see, ooh la la, this little guy popped up right here. So the next thing we do after we add the Rokoko resources folder, go to plugins, search for Rokoko because we're going to be live streaming data from Rokoko Studio, enable the plugin, and we'll have to do a restart. Okay, there we go. We've restarted, and now we're going to set up this Metahuman for some live streaming. And this is really just going to follow the typical workflow that we go through when we work with Metahumans to live stream to them. We have tutorials on our YouTube channel about this process, so there's not going to be a ton of things different with what we're doing, and therefore I might move a little bit quickly. So put questions down in the comments below if you have them. whenever I'm working with a Metahuman, the first thing I do is I open up its blueprint, and then I go and I changed LOD sync, the forced LOD, to 0. And this just means that the Metahuman is going to be forced to use the highest possible level of detail, and it won't be changing dynamically based on where my camera is, which I don't want. Then I'm going to go and select the body of our Metahuman. I'm going to open up the body mesh. This is the way I like to get to it. And then we want to go to the blueprint tab of our mesh. And this is where we're going to be building out all of our nodes to actually do our live streaming, right? It's going to open up in the event graph. We want to go to the anim graph, and here is where we're going to be building everything. So now I'm just going to go and do the basic workflow. Here, I'll actually dock this guy so we get a little bit more space. But we're just going to go and do what we normally do to do live streaming to Rokoko. So I'm going to add a Rokoko body pose node. I'm going to wire that in to my output pose. Then I'm going to create 2 variables. First one I'm going to call Rokoko actor name. The second one I'm going to call Rokoko bone map. And we're going to make the actor name variable a name type variable. And the bone map, we're going to search Rokoko body map data class reference. And then I'm going to drag both of these variables into my scene. Select get. And I'm going to wire my bone map into the retarget asset and the actor name into the Rokoko actor name right here. And if I select my body pose node right here and I hit compile, you'll see we get a couple new options that show up now that we've wired in our variables, right? One of them is our Rokoko actor name. This is the actor profile that you're using in Rokoko Studio. In my case, it's Sam. And then we also need to add the bone map. So this is telling Unreal which bones are which for our character. And thankfully, again, in that Rokoko resources folder, I have already included a Metahuman bone map for you. And you can see also these changes will not be applied unless we actually go and hit apply and compile, and we want to do that. Now, we're not done. We're going to make a couple more changes here. We did just wire in this bone map, but as you might remember from the intro of this video, we're going to be using the LiveLink app to control the head and neck rotation for our Metahuman. So we don't want our motion capture to be driving the neck and head rotation. So what we're going to do is go into that Rokoko resources folder, bone maps. You can see now when I open up the bone map, because we have the Rokoko plugin loaded, everything shows up. And here I've gone in and I've defined all the different bones for our Metahuman, and I'm just going to delete the neck and the head bones. So now no data from Rokoko Studio is going to be going to those 2 bones on our Metahuman. So that was the first difference from our normal live streaming workflow. Next, I'm going to undock our blueprint here because, as you can tell, our character is not in a T-pose, and we need our Metahuman to be in a T-pose in order to properly receive Rokoko motion capture. So again, in that Rokoko resources folder, I've got this T-pose pose asset. We'll drag that into our blueprint. I'm going to right-click on that, convert to pose by name. The name of our pose is pose_0, which again, you can see if we open up this pose asset, see pose_0 is the one that puts our Metahuman into a T-pose. So as soon as we do that and we wire this in to our component pose and we hit compile, look at that, our Metahuman is now in a T-pose. So that means that this Metahuman is now ready to receive our mocap from Rokoko Studio. Okay, so now I've actually jumped into Rokoko Studio, and let's set up our gloves. We have full tutorials on our YouTube channel about how to work with the Coil Pro. So again, I'm not gonna go super deep into it, but there are some different things we're gonna be doing for this workflow. So we'll go over that in a second. So gloves on, and I basically just got some USB-C cables running through the sleeves of my sweater. So they're kind of out of the way and they're not getting tangled, and they just run to a battery that's sitting right in my pocket. So this is a scene I've actually used my coil in previously, so we have a coil in here. Normally the coil will not show up until you actually power on your smart gloves, right? The coil is only going to appear once it detects smart gloves near it. So if you open up a new scene, you've plugged in your coil, but your coil isn't in the scene yet, that's fine. You just need to plug in your smart gloves and power them on, and your coil will appear. And so you can see I've got a disembodied hands here, and I'm gonna go and add my actor profile. And again, you can see my actor profile is named Sam, the same name that we used in our blueprint for our Metahuman. And I'm gonna drag on my gloves. So normally these wouldn't be calibrated already. I've already used the scene before, so they are, but I'm gonna do a calibration anyway. And when you're using gloves only, you can see our calibration pose is a little bit different. There we go. And the other thing, so this is looking, this looks great. My gloves are working perfectly. Choop, choop, choop. Looks awesome. But let's dive in here and actually show you what is happening to my full body. So you can see when we've got our gloves only enabled, we still have body movement for the rest of our Newton body, but it's all frozen, right? And you get this kind of wonky situation happening where, again, we only know the position of the gloves, so some of the data might look kind of funny for the rest of the body. And that's especially true if I am sitting down. So right now I've got my coil set to manual distance. So if I turn this off, this is the actual height of my coil. So when I'm standing, this looks perfect. But if I'm sitting down, we get this weird kind of hunched over look for our body, which does kind of make a difference for our Unreal scene. Because it means that the rest of the body that isn't being controlled by the LiveLink app is hunched over. So to kind of jury rig fix this, I can manually set the distance of my coil from the height to the floor, and that's just gonna kind of fake it that my coil was higher up in the room so that when I sit down, I'm not hunched over anymore. And you can see if I change this to like 80, now my hands are really high up. If I change this to 50, I'm hunched over. So this, I just kind of played with a number that got me to a good spot for me sitting down and still having my shoulders look good and everything like that. So the rest of this data is going to be going over into Unreal as well. So I'm gonna turn off, because I actually I just wanna see these cool hands. This just looks great. And at this point, we are ready to actually send this data over to Unreal. So I'm in the live streaming section of Rokoko Studio here. I'm gonna hit activate, there we go. And now if we jump back to Unreal, I'm going to grab my Metahuman. For the body, torso, legs, and feet, I'm gonna make sure that it is using the animation blueprint that we set up, which is that retarget Metahuman base scale. As soon as I hit that, you can see, ooh, look at this. Now we're in the T-pose, right? Our blueprint is working. And if I go over and I turn on LiveLink, and I hit plus, Rokoko Studio Source, Studio, here we go. We now have our actor body data coming through into Unreal. So before we get all this data actually on our Metahuman, I'm going to open up my LiveLink app, which should be recording, and it should come up on the screen. I'm going to select LiveLink, not Metahuman Animator, continue. And as soon as I do this, you can see that we get our LiveLink working. And if I touch this live button up top, you can see it's turning green, turning white. When it's green, it's actually live. If I go into settings, I've got head rotation turned on because we want that head rotation. And if I go to my LiveLink, you can see again, because I've already set up my phone to work with the Apple ARKit LiveLink app, it just pops up automatically. So this is ready, and now if we go to our Metahuman, if I hit play, look, it's all working, right? Except for the LiveLink app. But if I actually want this to be working in my editor, what I can do, and this is a little jury-riggy, but essentially if you just go and you turn on the ARKit face subject here and use ARKit face, look at this. We now have a completely live Metahuman working in Unreal Engine only using my gloves, which is crazy. This is so cool. Now, the other thing that you can see that we have going on here is we have a lot of body movement in our scene, which I actually don't like. I kind of want my guy just to be absolutely still. Now, it is cool that I can actually move around my scene, and my Metahuman is going to follow me because, again, the Coil Pro actually knows where my Smartgloves are in space, which is very different from the non-Coil Pro workflow. But if I want my hips just to be locked into place, what we can do is we will select our Metahuman. I'm gonna hit Control E to open up the blueprint. Then I'm gonna go to the body. Again, we need to get back to that animation blueprint that we created for our Metahuman, which is right here. And what I'm gonna do is I am going to add in a transform modify bone node, wire that into my chain, and I'm going to select my pelvis, and then on translation, replace existing 0000. When I hit compile, it's gonna get a little weird for a second because it means that it goes down to the origin, but I am just gonna move this back up, and you can see, so now on my Z axis, I'm at a value of 83, but my body is no longer moving in space. It's just rotating in space, which is what I want because I'm on my swivel chair, right? I wanna be able to rotate, but I just don't want my body moving around in space. So there you go. Got it all up and running. And this looks pretty good. Of course, the hands aren't like perfectly touching. That's because of subtle differences between my proportions and the Metahuman's proportions, but you could get this a little bit better with tweaking, and it already looks really good though. You can see there's like no intersection of the hands, which is all very different from how it used to be using our inertial based motion capture system, just with the suit alone without the coil. So that is how you get this all set up with a Metahuman. Now, Metahumans are built by default with this ability to take in LiveLink data of the neck and head rotation. So that is not the case for a custom character. That's why I kind of chose to do this full setup with a Metahuman, because it's already built in. Now, let's jump back over to the monkey character that we started the video with, and I'll kind of talk about a little bit about how you can go and set up LiveLink data to be driving the neck and head of a custom character, where it isn't just, again, for us, it's just we click this on and it all is just working, right, automatically. That's not going to be the case for most custom characters that have facial blend shapes. The facial blend shapes, the facial motion capture will work pretty much automatically with your iPhone, but this business will not. So let's jump over to that character and I will show you how to get that all set up and working. But this is so cool. I think this is amazing that we can have this kind of performance just using gloves. I just hopped in my gloves. I can be here for hours streaming like this, and I don't have to be wearing a suit. As much as I love wearing a suit, this is pretty nice, just having my comfy little gloves on and still getting all of this expressive, accurate motion capture data, looking good. So, okay, let's hop over to the other character now. So here I am again, back in that first character setup that we started the video with, and you can see I've just got my Unreal, open. I've got kind of my controller, just model that's just parented to my left hand, so I can turn that on and off. But it's really cool to be able to have, little props, and I'm sure you could gamify this or hook it up to a Stream Deck, or something like that. But yeah, let's go over a little bit about how this system is set up. So I'm going to open up my blueprint for this monkey character. And you can see we have a little bit more of a complicated setup here. But it is also very familiar to what we just did with our Metahuman, right? So here I've got the Rokoko body pose node. I've got my bone map. I've got my actor name for my bone map. I went ahead and removed my head bone and my neck bone again, right? Because our LiveLink is going to be taking care of that. I've got my T-pose asset, the T-poses for my character. But then I've got a bunch of other transform bone nodes and other variables. And what is happening here? So I will put a link to some of the videos that really helped me to understand how to do this. It's a pretty simple setup to get the neck and head movement coming in from LiveLink and using that for your character, right? I'm not going to go over how to build all that. Follow the videos that I have down in the description below for more information. But the way that it's essentially working is that if we hop back over to our event graph, so you need to set this up in the event graph. And this character that I'm using actually came with a little already pre-made blueprint that did some of this translation from the LiveLink app into head movement. So I just kind of copied it from the blueprint that was included and added it to this one. But what's basically happening is we have our evaluate LiveLink frame node. And you can see the subject is just my iPhone. And what this is doing is it's pulling in data from our LiveLink app that has all of our neck and head rotation and all of our blend shape animation. And then I'm pulling out the data here, you can see, and grabbing the different properties from that LiveLink. And then I am clamping those values within a certain range of head movement, because we only want our head to be moving in kind of specific ways. And then I'm connecting that all into a rotator variable. You can see down here, I've got this head rotator variable here. And this is essentially containing all of that data that we're pulling from the LiveLink app that has our head rotation. Then when I jump back into my animation graph, if I cruise down here, look at what we got here. We have that head rotation variable, right? Get rotation. And this is the data, essentially, the live data coming in from LiveLink. And then what I'm doing is I'm plugging that into these transform modify bone nodes, and I am adding, or I'm actually replace existing the rotational data. You can see that this head rotation variable is plugging in eventually into this rotation plug in this node. Now what I'm actually doing here is I've got a couple multiplier nodes that is, I don't need all of the data. I actually thought for this character what would be better is to use some of the data to rotate the head bone, then use a little bit the same data but just less of it to rotate my neck bone. And then I'm even plugging in 0.1% of the rotational data, of the amount of rotations, essentially, the degree of rotations, into my upper spine bone. So I'm actually getting some movement on my upper spine bone too. And that means that my head rotation from LiveLink is affecting my head bone of my character, it's affecting the neck bone of my character, and it's also affecting slightly the spine bone of my character. And that is just allowing me to get a little bit more movement out of my LiveLink app than we got by default from the Metahuman workflow, where it was just using all of the data to rotate our head, essentially. So that is the very, bare bones, not getting too deep into what I did here setup, I've got my normal Rokoko live streaming setup going to all my bones except for my head and neck bone and upper spine bone. And then I am pulling in this head rotational data that is working from our event graph, right, to actually pull this data live, second by second, frame by frame from LiveLink. I'm using that data to drive my head bone, my neck bone, and my spine bone. So that is the full setup. Then I've got, my Unreal here set up with a little green screen. I've actually got, weird stuff happening behind my character if I want to go full non-green screen. But yeah, this is a really clean, easy workflow. And again, put any questions you might have down in the comments below. This was not intended as a full workflow video. I really just wanted to show you what was possible using the Coil Pro and just your gloves to get this full performance motion capture result. So lots of things can be tweaked. This is very imperfect, but it's really cool just as a brief demo to show that this can work. So hope you found this video useful. We'll be doing lots more stuff like this on our live streams, Thursdays at 11 a.m. PST. You can come join me there if you have more questions. And other than that, I will see you in the next video. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.